X-Men 97 Season 2 just dropped, and I'm here to break down all the first 3 episodes and what has happened. The season immediately kicks off where we have Forge and Bishop in an underground hideout, and they're planning where they're going to go. Forge agrees to go to the future to go and see Aurora, and Bishop agrees to go to the past. We're then immediately brought into this future setting where Cyclops and Jean are looking after Nathan, and they don't really want to go back straight away despite Forge coming to save them. And we learn that Apocalypse is seeking a new host in Nathan Summers as a kid, a host strong enough for him to rule. But Mother Ascani has prophesied that Nathan will kill Apocalypse. So Forge arrives, we have some good moments between him and Storm and their ideals, and he eventually tells the X-Men that they have to go now. Cyclops and Jean don't really want to go, and then they realize maybe they could just take Nathan with them. They know it's dumb, they know it can disrupt the timeline, but they're parents, what do you expect? And then Morph asks Nathan to go play a game of catch, and then after catching the ball, Nathan literally runs off with Jean and Scott, and Apocalypse sends his 4 horsemen after them, and eventually captures the 3. Mother Ascani then learns of this and tells the X-Men those 3 have to be saved before they arrive at Apocalypse's citadel or he'll be unstoppable. And we also learn that Mother Ascani was actually the one that transported the X-Men through time so that they could stop Apocalypse at different reigns of his power. Then we're in the train where Cyclops, Jean and Nathan are all captured, and Jean's trying to teach Nathan how to use his powers to break free from the chain. Nathan thinks because he was abandoned, he's not able to do it and he's not good enough. But then Cyclops repeats the words that he did when Nathan was born, and he remembers, he realizes that Cyclops is his dad. Nathan then frees Scott and Jean and they fight their way out. The other X-Men arrive. Storm summons a solar eclipse, literally because Mother Ascani told her that in the future she has the power to, so I guess she just did. And then from then they break into Apocalypse's citadel. Apocalypse realizes he's lost and he transports back to the 1990s where the X-Men are the most vulnerable. And as much as he doesn't want to, Nathan ends up having to send his parents and the other X-Men back to their time so that they can defeat Apocalypse. And at the end of the episode, we see Cable recruiting for X-Force with Psylocke and Archangel, and he's looking for Jubilee and Sunspot. Episode 2 was essentially the X-Force episode. It was my personal favourite. I don't know if that's a hot take, I just really enjoyed the dynamics between the characters. We see Cable arriving at the arcade where Jubilee and Sunspot are, and he recruits them to the cause, and they're after one of the 4 horsemen, War. In the time that X-Men have disappeared, the world's gone into a bit of a chaos, and Cable's just trying to navigate his way through the chaos and find the root of the cause. They eventually locate War in Brazil, and they capture him. But when Psylocke isn't able to probe his mind and get the information they want, they unalive him. And Jubilee has a hard time going through that because obviously she grew up with Xavier and the X-Men who don't really take nicely to killing, apart from maybe Wolverine. But Cable essentially just says to her, it's what has to be done. He could cause havoc if we don't dispose of him now. Psylocke sees that War's mind has been booby-trapped and trapped by diamonds, quote unquote, and there's only one person that could be. They eventually track down Emma, who tells them the horsemen wanted to smuggle cargo into Switzerland. Emma then takes them to the location where this would be happening, and they find nothing. All the equipment that Apocalypse had probably been using to turn mutants into his soldiers is gone. And who arrives at the scene? X-Factor. X-Factor and X-Force, they have a quick tussle, but by the end of it, Jubilee is captured, and Sunspot has a hard time abandoning her, but Psylocke tranquilizes him. Now, Jubilee is captured by X-Factor, and they are trying to interrogate her to find out what Cable is doing. But Polaris and Jubilee, they have a bit of an interaction. Jubilee calls Havoc just a knockoff Cyclops, and it kind of gets to him. Polaris knows what Jubilee's saying, but doesn't also know what to do in this situation. So she kind of just puts her in a cell with the other mutants. Now back to X-Force, Sunspot is having a hard time believing that they truly left Jubilee behind, and he keeps trying to force Cable to go back and rescue her. Cable keeps telling him that Jubilee can handle it, she'll be fine on her own, but that's not his main thing. He just knows that she's not a main priority. Back to Jubilee though, while she's in her cell, Polaris comes to see her and essentially gives her the keys to just unlock her cell and do whatever she can. She says she'll have 5 minutes, what happens in that time is not down to her, she's just letting her go. And in that time, of course, Jubilee runs rampant. We get some great music, action scenes where Jubilee's destroying all the guards, frees all the mutants, and in that same time, Cable arrives. He goes there, X-Factor try and see if they can get Jubilee to surrender, but she just jumps off. Sunspot goes, flies in, saves her, get her back onto the jet with all the children, and mission success. X-Force is then declared national fugitives, and we get a great moment where Cable acknowledges how tough kids can really be, obviously with the upbringing he had. The X-Men team from the future have now arrived back to the present day, and they realize the team from the past still hasn't arrived. Let's shift our focus to the past, 5,000 years before the X-Men are usually around. And Magneto is already seen talking to En-Sabah. If you don't know, that's Apocalypse before he became Apocalypse. And he's talking about his abilities and how people fear those with abilities like the two of them have. And then he talks about how survival is the only way. And then it pans to Ramatut, who's sending his forces to challenge En-Sabah before he becomes Apocalypse and starts an uprising. We then see En-Sabah getting ready to ride out to battle, and he talks about attaining freedom for the people and the slaves, and he's getting ready to, and it pans to Magneto, who is speaking to a projection of Charles, and Charles really doesn't like that Magneto's put his trust in En-Sabah because he knows that he's destined to become Apocalypse. Magneto then hits back and says that that's not the case in this era, even though we all know that's destined to happen. We get a motivational speech from En-Sabah before they charge towards the Citadel, and most of them get taken out by the traps. Bunch of robots come down from under the sun, grab most of his forces, and En-Sabah is cooked. And whilst it seems like En-Sabah is about to die and get crushed, he bursts out with immense strength, and he charges towards the commander and takes General Logos alive. Magneto tells him not to kill General Logos and to spare him, but En-Sabah's friend Baal doesn't really agree with that at all. We then finally pan to the X-Men, Beast, Rogue, Nightcrawler and Professor X. They're in some sort of a cave trying to work on a machine to take them back home. They try it, they use some of the robots that come from Ramatut's army, but the machine doesn't really work. En-Sabah is then explaining to Magneto how his council helped the slaves follow him and no longer fear him. But Baal, again, doesn't believe in the X-Men and their being friends at all. We then find out that Magneto has told En-Sabah that he sees a destiny for him in the future, which he really shouldn't have done because he's already messing with the timeline. And Magneto then asks Charles, when they're having a talk about this, what if Nur had championed Charles' dream 5,000 years before he did? And Charles is reluctant because he doesn't really believe in altering history to that scale. This is one of my favourite moments so far in the new season because it really shows the contrast between Professor X and Magneto, how they both want the same thing but they have extremely different ways of trying to achieve it. It then pans to En-Sabah trying to interrogate Logos, the Pharaoh's commander, and Logos just antagonizes him with his upbringing and mocks him for being a slave and reveals that he was actually En-Sabah's first master who put him in chains. Nur then goes to strike Logos, but Magneto stops him before he can deliver the fatal blow. Charles then goes against what he'd normally not agree with and enters Logos' mind, but he can't find anything. It's really mysterious, hard to get into, and all there is this symbol of like a temple, and there's a presence that says, "Here's where the end begins." It then turns to Baal, Nur's friend, and he's discovered the X-Men hideout, and he's seen that they're trying to use the robots from the Pharaoh to power a machine to get back home. Nur, shocked by this, believes that he's being betrayed and deceived, and he murders Logos straight away, saying he was not fit to survive. Nur then sends his forces to attack the X-Men, and Bishop is actually undercover in those forces, and he comes out of hiding and fighting breaks out. He gives the X-Men the time travel devices to get back, but before that can happen, Ramatut finds Nur from the Citadel and sends a massive force laser which goes through the mountain, and the episode ends before the X-Men can escape back to their own time, and it says to be continued. I think that episode was great, but I think the next episode is going to be even better, really showing En-Sabah's turn to becoming Apocalypse, and I do think that the X-Men will eventually get back to their own future. And yeah, so if you guys enjoyed the video, I'll try and post more every week, like it. Subscribe, go check out my other videos, Podcast My Friend, and yeah, cheers.